everyone. Welcome to another episode of Getting the Job International Student Edition. I'm really excited to have Komal here, who is a software engineer at Duolingo. Komal, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. Hi. So my name is Komal. I'm originally from New Delhi. I was born in the UK, but I've grown up in Delhi. And I moved here to do my undergrad. So I studied computer science at Carnegie Mellon. And I 2 weeks ago started working at Duolingo. So it's been exciting. I'm excited to be here.
Very new. Okay, great. So did you studied software engineering at Carnegie Mellon? Did you know that that's what you wanted to do, or were you ever deciding between majors?
So I came into Carnegie Mellon knowing that I'm going to major in computer science, but I wouldn't necessarily say that as a child I've always wanted to be a computer scientist. I always knew that I wanted to do something in STEM, and computer science is like the area that opens up a lot of opportunities if you don't really know what you want to do in the future. I think one of the things I did discover during my college career was linguistics, and I feel like I'm super into linguistics, and I should have realized this sooner because I was really into language education during high school too. So yeah, then I was like, okay, I'm gonna be working at Duolingo. That was my goal, and I'm now working at Duolingo, so it's awesome.
Cool. So did you ever intern anywhere within the US, or was this your first time getting in the US job?
So my sophomore summer, I interned with a professor at Carnegie Mellon. So it was like a research internship. And then my junior summer, I interned at Microsoft.
Okay,
Uh,
perfect. And did you see that that process differed at all from a full-time recruiting, or was it somewhat similar?
I think it was pretty similar. I'm sure the level of difficulty in terms of the questions in the interview and stuff is different, but I think the process in general was pretty similar.
How did you go about deciding the different places you were going to apply? Did you have a list in mind, or were you just kind of going around what you were interested in?
Um, I think I did have somewhat of a list. Um, like obviously, I was applying to the big companies like Fang and like Microsoft and everything. But then, other than that, I was applying to companies that were coming to the career fairs at Carnegie Mellon, um, because that meant that they had an interest in recruiting Carnegie Mellon students. Um, and I was looking for places that uh, just seemed interesting to me, like whose mission seemed cool.
A lot of students are really stressed about the do you sponsor question once that comes up.
Um, I mean, I've definitely faced the situation where I really wanted to work at a company, and when I went to the career fair and talked to the recruiters there, they were super interested too. And then they realized that, oh, you're not from America, like you're not a citizen, so we can't actually uh, hire you. So it's a little disappointing. But I think I think it's a good thing that most big companies um, do sponsor visas, and like it's just I guess the only way through it for me has kind of been to focus on the ones that do sponsor rather than the ones that I missed because of my visa status.
No, that makes sense. Did you focus heavily on just what Carnegie Mellon had in terms of their in-person fair and maybe whatever digital platform they used, or were you ever going off platform and finding companies on your own?
I think definitely the my university's like online, like they use Handshake, which is kind of like
Hmm.
it has a bunch of job listings. That definitely was very helpful, but I did definitely go outside of that, look for jobs that were listed on Glassdoor maybe, um, and apply to those as well.
Perfect. And where did networking fall in this process? Were you messaging people on LinkedIn, being like, hi, are you free for a quick chat? Did you build relationships otherwise? I think that's like one big question that everyone tries to figure out.
Mhm. So I've always been like really bad at networking. As a first year, second year, I was so scared to put myself out there and like talk to professionals because I thought, why would they be interested in me? I don't have anything to offer. So I feel like it took me very long until I realized that I could like start networking with people. The way I did it was definitely through people I already knew. So
Mhm.
people that were 2 or 3 years above me in college, and I knew them, and I was interested in the company they were working at or interning at. So I think that is kind of how I built my connections. Um, I think it's definitely when I get now, like when I get messages on LinkedIn, I feel like, oh, this is so nice because I want to help these. Like if someone messages me on LinkedIn and is like, oh, can I talk to you about Duolingo? And can I talk to you about how you got this job? Can you review my resume? I want to help. So I feel like it is definitely something that students can leverage.
What were the things that you think really helped you land these interviews? Because one thing that my mind was backtracking on is you're right that the best practice for an interview is an interview, but a lot of people are one step behind where they're not even getting those interviews. So, is there anything that you did specifically that you think made you either stand out or, get that first round in?
Um, I think that's a very good question because I definitely struggled with this a lot. Definitely my first 2 years. As a first year and as a second year, it's way harder to get an internship or an interview than it is as a third year. I think it's a good idea to keep doing something, even if it's not an industry internship. So, for example, my first year, I interned at Triple ID Delhi in India. Yeah, so it's just that you have to fill out your gaps. You
Mm-hmm.
need to show the companies and like the employers that you have been working on things and like your resume needs to reflect a commitment, I guess. Um, and I think one thing that was very important was that even though my resume had a bunch of things listed on it, it wasn't with the amount of confidence that it should have been there. So it's very important to like, especially coming from India, I think uh, I was always taught to be humble and not, not think
Yeah,
of myself as something great or just
right.
keep your
Yeah.
head down and keep working. But here, when you're trying to get interviews, you have to impress people. You have to showcase what you have, and it's really hard to do. So it's very important to get feedback on your resume from people who have experience framing their resume in a way that's impressive. And I think networking for sure is very important because if you have a referral from in a company and like if there is an existing employee at a company who is impressed by you, then you have a higher chance of getting an interview because they would refer you, they would try to get you through the process.
So I'm sure you interviewed at a couple places between your internships and your full-time jobs. How did you prepare for those interviews?
I think so. One of the things that prepares you for interviews is just interviews. Like the more interviews you've had experience with, the better you're gonna be doing at like at the more important ones, I guess. So for this, for like the speaking part of an interview and like interacting with another person and being able to put forward your skills, I think just interviewing with a lot of companies definitely helped in that. Like sometimes you don't really want to work at a company, but if you get the practice of being in an interview process, it's like very helpful. And then for the coding part, I think I used online resources like LeetCode.
I think one big thing that we're leading into is being a software engineer at Duolingo. I think there was like a post on LinkedIn where they had sent you a bunch of things before you started, which was really sweet. But can you maybe talk about your role as a software engineer at Duolingo, even though you're super new?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm still figuring out my role, so I don't have like a complete picture, but I have joined as an Android engineer, so I'm like the only Android engineer on my team, and which is terrifying because I've never worked on Android. But the good part is that they have so many resources for me to like learn that,
Mhm.
even though I'm not familiar with it. And the other thing is my team is like the core learning team, which is kind of works on the main learning platform of Duolingo, and it's a research and development team. therefore they try to come up with ideas to improve it and just how we can improve the user's learning experience. So I think a good chunk of my job is actually thinking about ways to improve the platform, discussing it with people on my team in the general learning R&D area, and then the other part is like the actual software engineering part, where I would we decide on a change to implement, and I would implement it and then test it out. But yeah, I guess in the future I'll be working with designers, product managers, probably to get these tasks done.
Okay, perfect. And a lot of people have been asking us to chat with the people we're interviewing with about the skills that you learned while you were in university versus like what you're using today. And I'm sure, again, you've only been there for 2 weeks, so very new. But do you feel like a lot of those are transferable, or there was things that you still feel like you're learning for the first time right now?
So I'm actually very pleasantly surprised at the number of things that are actually applicable at my job. Because when I was interning at Microsoft, for example, everything was very different than what I had learned in college. But here, a lot of tasks that I undertake, or a lot of things that I have to think about, I do have relevant experience from college. So for example, we program in Scala, which is a functional language, and I wouldn't have experience with that if I hadn't had classes that taught functional languages, not Scala, but some other one. But it's still like nice to have that. I'm working in the learning area, which requires a lot of thinking about languages, thinking about just how a user would best learn. And I think I was a linguistics minor, so a lot of my linguistics classes have definitely helped me with that. And then there are a lot of AI research things going on at Duolingo, because they want to harness the power of AI to improve the learning experience. And it's always wonderful when I can understand it and have ideas for it because of my experiences at Carnegie Mellon.
That's great. Honestly, I feel like that's the best feeling when you feel like you can add right away, or at least you understand before having to relearn the whole thing. One thing that everyone's really curious about is getting onboarded into a job remotely. How does that feel? Were you interning last year at Microsoft in person, or was that also remote?
That was also remote. So
Okay.
all of my industry experience has been remote. I would say it's definitely very daunting, because when you're at the office and your mentor is sitting right next to you, you can go up to your mentor and ask them questions. And if there's like a tiny bug in your code, they can like just stand there with you and look at it and figure it out with you. But it's very hard to do that on Zoom, because you have to like message each other and plan out a time, and also just the human connection. It's it's way harder to like form those connections with people when you're not meeting them in person. But it's definitely, at least at Microsoft and Duolingo, the support system for online onboarding has been very good. They've been very good at like having a cohesive kind of a plan on how to onboard a new employee, and that I've really appreciated that. But I also, it's definitely way harder though.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine, to be honest. I'm very used to being that person in the office who's like hopping around or taking a quick break and getting to know someone. And my work friends from when I was working at Yelp, they were such a big part of my day. And now, it's difficult to have that in between moment when you're virtual. Okay, cool. I think kind of moving into the last section of this interview, we just want to know if you have advice for international students who could be in one of two boats. You can think of it as two questions. A, people who are just starting work for the first time, never worked before, and doing it remotely. And then B, people who are graduating this spring and are still looking for opportunities and are just a little bit stressed out right now.
I feel like it's very hard to like give advice in this situation, because it's so unprecedented. It's just that you should, I feel like all of us international students need to know that what we're doing is like way harder than what American students need to do. So like respect yourself for that. And I think for students that are just starting out, I feel like one of the most important things I'm gonna say is like talk to people who have had to build that confidence coming into the United States. Because like if you're not in person, then you're not going to get that experience with your peers who are like confident and building the resume and being way more impressive than you think you're supposed to be. And for people that are still looking for jobs, I feel like it's very hard. And I think all I want to say is like hang in there. Like it's the times are so hard that it's often very easy for us to just feel hopeless. But the thing remains that we do have our own country to go back to, even if it's not what you want to do. Like in the worst possible case, what the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to go back to your own country, and it, you know, you will still have time. It's not the end of the world if you don't get what you wanted just right now. But
I feel like me last year really needed to hear that. I think people don't stress enough the fact that the norm is not staying. Staying is the goal, but there are a lot of people, and what's been interesting is lately we've been talking to a lot of people who are STEM majors, and that's really exciting. But STEM majors do have 2 extra years of an opportunity to try to get to stay here, versus a lot of students who, like me, have no technical skills whatsoever. It's very difficult to do that. So there are a lot of students who do need to hear that and say that it's okay, like we're going to figure it out. If you really want to be back here, there is a way. So thank you for that. That was great. I think that might be all the questions interview wise I have for you. The last one is just, is there anything you're looking forward to in 2021, whether it's related to work or not?
I feel like I'm just looking forward to things slightly going back to normal and being able to meet people. But yeah, I feel like everyone is looking forward to that at this point.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, Komal, this is great. Thank you so much for being here. We'll let you know when this is posted, and hopefully people will feel comfortable reaching out to you if they have any questions about Duolingo.